9 seats stand between a go-kart on a Sunday morning and the grid at a Grand Prix. At every one, most of the field doesn't make it through, not because they aren't fast enough, but because of everything else this sport quietly demands. Level 1. The Karting Prodigy. You're 9 years old and you're already faster than kids twice your age on the local track, which is either the best or worst thing that could have happened to your family, depending on how the next 15 years go. Karting isn't a hobby at the level your parents are now funding it. A competitive season runs somewhere around $80,000 to $150,000. The cart, the engine rebuilds, the tires you burn through by the dozen, the travel to regional and national events most 9-year-olds have never heard of. Your mechanic is a woman named Ines, hired by your father after your second season, who treats your cart with more precision than most surgeons treat a patient. She's the one who first tells you, flatly, in the way only someone who isn't your parent can say it. You have real talent, and real talent is the cheapest part of what this is going to take. Everything else costs money, and money runs out for almost everyone before talent does. You win enough regional titles that a talent scout from a junior racing academy takes notice. You are 11. Your family has already spent more on your driving than most families spend on a house. Level 2. The Junior Formula Driver. Formula 4, open-wheel racing, real speed for the first time. Cars that can hit 140 miles an hour on a straight, driven by teenagers who are, medically, still growing. A season here runs $200,000 to $300,000, and this is the level where the sport's ugliest open secret becomes impossible to ignore. Teams need sponsorship money to survive, and a driver who brings a wealthy backer often gets a seat over a faster driver who doesn't. You hear the phrase pay driver for the first time, said with a sneer about someone else. You'll hear it about yourself eventually too, fairly or not, no matter how fast you actually are. Inez moves with you to the junior team, taking a pay cut from her karting circuit rate to stay with a driver she believes in. You crash hard during your second race weekend. Nothing serious, a battered wrist and a car that needs a new front wing, but it's the first time you understand, physically, what happens when this sport goes wrong instead of right. You get back in the car 4 days later. Everyone around you treats this as completely normal. It takes you a while to understand why it isn't. Level 3. Formula 3. The budgets climb past $1 million a season now, almost none of which is your money. It's sponsors, family wealth, or a manufacturer's junior program betting on you being worth the investment. You're racing against drivers from a dozen countries, all of whom were the fastest kid at their local track once too, which means being fast is no longer remotely enough to stand out. You have your first real public failure here, a qualifying session where you make a mistake in front of scouts from 3 Formula One teams, and you can feel, in the paddock afterward, the exact moment your value in the sport quietly drops. Inez doesn't let you sulk about it. She has you back in the simulator that same night, running the same corner 40 times until the mistake is gone from your hands, not just your head. You finish the season strong enough to be talked about again. Barely. Level 4. Formula 2. This is the last room in the house before Formula One, and everyone in it knows it. The budgets are $2 to $3 million a season. The cars are brutally close to Formula One machinery, and the grid is full of drivers who are, by any reasonable measure, already good enough for the very top of the sport. There simply aren't 20 seats in Formula One for the 40 or so drivers who deserve one. You watch a teammate, someone faster than you on his best days, fail to find the sponsorship money to continue into a second season here, and simply disappear from the sport within a year. Not because he couldn't drive, but because the money ran out at exactly the wrong moment. You understand, watching it happen to him, that this level is as much a financial filter as it is a talent filter. and that the two get confused constantly by fans and sometimes by the paddock itself. You have the best season of your life. Race wins, a championship fight that goes to the final round. It's enough. A Formula One team calls Inez's phone, not yours, because that's how these calls are made at this level, and asks about your availability for the following year. Level 5. The reserve driver. You're in Formula One, sort of. You're the reserve and test driver for a team, which means you're in the paddock at every Grand Prix, wearing the team's colors, doing simulator work and media duties, and occasionally a practice session on a Friday morning. And not racing. The actual race seat belongs to someone else, and short of an injury or a genuinely disastrous run of results from him, it's going to stay that way. This is a strange, specific kind of purgatory. You are, technically, a Formula One driver. You have not driven a single competitive lap of a Grand Prix. Inez, now your full-time race engineer on the simulator program, tells you this is the level that breaks more careers than any crash ever does. Not physically, but the specific psychological toll of being close enough to see it and unable to touch it, sometimes for years. You take every simulator session like it's the real thing. You wait. Level 6. The backmarker seat. The call finally comes from a smaller team fighting at the back of the grid rather than the front, and you take it without a second's hesitation because a seat at the back is still a seat, and a seat is the only thing on earth that gets you the one thing you actually need: laps, in anger, against the fastest drivers alive. Your salary here is modest by Formula One standards, $1 million or $2 million, plus performance bonuses that rarely trigger for a team fighting for 19th place instead of podiums. You finish races 2 laps down more often than not. You also learn, in real conditions, at real speed, exactly what this sport is capable of doing to a human body when it goes wrong. A heavy crash during your rookie season leaves you with bruised ribs and a concussion that keeps you out for a race you'd trained your whole life to be in. You are back in the car 3 races later. This, too, is treated as completely normal. Level 7. The midfield seat. A strong run of results gets you noticed, and a midfield team, one that scores points most weekends, occasionally fights for a podium on a good day, signs you. Your salary jumps into the $5 to $10 million range. You are, by any measure outside the sport's own internal hierarchy, one of the most successful drivers on the planet. Inside the sport, you're still climbing. The pressure changes shape here rather than disappearing. Every contract is 1 or 2 years long, and every one of those years is a referendum on whether you keep the seat, get promoted to a top team, or get quietly replaced by whichever junior driver is currently doing to Formula 2 what you did to it. Inez tells you the drivers who last are the ones who stop racing the driver in the other car and start racing the seat they might lose. You start sleeping worse before contract renewal season than you ever did before a race. Level 8. The top team. A championship contending team signs you, and the money changes categories entirely. 20, 30, sometimes $50 million a season once bonuses and image rights are included. More than an entire junior racing career's worth of budgets combined in a single year. You are fighting for wins now, for podiums nearly every weekend, for a world championship that suddenly feels close enough to touch instead of a fantasy from your karting days. Your teammate is exactly as fast as you are, driving identical machinery, which means the only variable left is you. And the psychological weight of that is unlike anything at any level below it. A single mistake in a title-deciding race becomes something replayed for years, sometimes decades, by people who've never sat in the car themselves. You win races. You also crash once at a speed that makes the karting days crash look like nothing, and walk away from it only because of 2 decades of engineering built specifically to make sure drivers walk away from crashes like that one. You understand, finally and completely, Why every level before this one insisted on treating disaster as normal. It's the only way anyone survives actually reaching this one. Level 9. The Legend. A handful of drivers in the sport's entire history reached the very top of it. Multiple world championships, a name that gets said in the same breath as the sport itself. Your net worth by now sits somewhere in the hundreds of millions, between salary endorsements and image rights built over a career that started with a go-kart your parents could barely afford. Inez retires the same year you do, after 2 decades together, from a 9-year-old with more talent than money to a champion with more money than he ever imagined possible, as that same 9-year-old. Young karting prodigies get brought to meet you now, the way you once got brought to meet drivers whose posters were on your bedroom wall, and some of their parents ask you, quietly, whether it's worth what it costs. You think about the teammate who ran out of sponsorship money in Formula 2 and vanished from the sport within a year, exactly as fast as you were, and unluckier by nothing but budget. You think about the crash. You tell the parents the truth, the only honest answer there's ever been. It was worth it for you. You have no idea if it will be for their kid, and neither do they. And that uncertainty is the actual price of admission, the one that was never listed next to the cost of the kart. 9 seats, 1 filter the entire way up. Talent, money, and survival, in an order that changes depending on who you ask. If a ladder like this is your kind of thing, there's another one waiting. Subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one.